Welcome back, friends, to another episode of Tipsy Tuesday. Today we're going to be making Old Fashions. It's one of those simplistic cocktails that it doesn't take a lot of components, but it's really easy to mess up and it's actually really hard to find a pretty decent one. I'm going to walk you through a couple different ways of doing it, a couple different recipes, and then let you loose into the wild so that you can go off and make your own favorite version. To start off though, there's a couple misconceptions that I really do want to clear up. Somewhere along the way, lost in the mist of time basically, Wisconsin got the idea into everybody's head that the way to make an old fashioned was something like this. So you gotta take yourself a glass here, and what you want to do is grab your sugar jar and you grab a teaspoon and you're just gonna go ahead there and drop that in. That looks pretty good. Then you're gonna grab your bitters and just a couple 3-4 dashes in there. There we go, we got that looking good. And then you're gonna take your cherries. You want your maraschino cherries that kind of look like a fishing bobber there. This is one of those drinks that it's pretty good to drink any time of year. Speaking of fishing bobbers, fishing season just opened. I hope y'all got your licenses ready, and hopefully the fish are gonna bite as well as the mosquitoes do. But you got your fishing bobber there. Grab yourself a little bit of an orange and cut up a slice out of this thing here. The nice juicy part. There you go. And grab a thick slice. You know, we like a lot of the juice there. Just shove that on down in there. That's good. Get all that stuff moved off to the side there. And get your bottle of brandy ready here. We usually don't like to go quite this fancy, but you know, your wife's cousin Jerry brought this over for Christmas last year. He got a little big in the britches after he went to the big city and had himself a promotion, but we don't waste booze in this house, so that's what we're gonna use right now. But we'll get to that there in a second. What we're gonna do first is we're gonna grab ourselves a muddler here, and we're just gonna go to town on this concoction. Once it looks like something that you maybe want to feed the dog after a little bit, it's looking pretty good. So set your muddler off to the side there. Go ahead and grab yourself that fancy brandy. Pour a couple two shots in there. We're gonna do just 2 shots. So thinking about deer season while we're looking at the orange there. Like I said, this is one of them cocktails that works well any time of year. So you got that stuff all up in there. Grab yourself a handful of ice. Now the key to this cocktail, you don't actually want to taste the booze. That's why we got all that sugar. It's why we got all of that there bitters. You know, well, let's just go ahead and add another dash in there for the heck of it. This is going to be a gosh darn good cocktail. So top that up with the ice, grab the stuff that's trying to get away, grab your little teaspoon there, give that a little bit of a stir. There you go. Get the ice cubes falling out again, that's not a problem. Badger, come here. Yeah, come here, Badger, come say hi. Huh? Come say hi. Get your ice. There you go, get your ice cube, there we go. You gotta pay the ice tax for the dogs there. They're going to be supervising everything you do, so you may as well pay them, eh? So, alright, you got yourself a nice little old fashioned there. So, hey, cheers to you. Fuck the bears, right? So, coming back out of the Upper Peninsula, not really the best drink that you're going to have, and not really necessarily a good indication of what an old fashioned could or should be. Really. We're gonna shove all this stuff off to the side so we can forget about it. Now that you've seen kind of what you shouldn't be doing, let's get into a little bit more of what you should be doing. Old fashions do vary a decent amount by region. The upper Midwest here tends to favor more brandy or Canadian whiskeys, things like that. Very popular up here. A lot of the rest of the country, a little bit more of the bourbon side, and that's the direction that I'm going to go with the one that I'm about to show you. And the further south you get, you start to find more and more people using Southern Comfort. To make this one, we are going to be using some bourbon. I like to use the Knob Creek. It's 100 proof. It holds up nicely to letting this drink kind of sit and mellow. On top of that, we're going to be using the Demerara syrup. Demerara, is an unprocessed brown sugar, basically. It's not quite the, C&H brown sugar that you would see. It's more like the sugar in the raw or turbinado sugar that you may see in some of the nicer sections of the grocery store. And then our bitters that we've been using so far. You'll see that I've got a couple other different varieties of bitters here. We'll get to those in a second. You can make it straight in the glass. You can use your handy little stirring glass, dilute it in there, and then pour it in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you both ways. For this particular one, because we are using an overproof bourbon, we are going to use the stirring glass to start. Get this stuff moved over here. There we go. Did that look awkward enough for you? I hope so. These big ice cubes, and these are from Minnesota Clear Ice, they're super dense. They don't melt quickly, which is fantastic for a sipping drink like this one. You want it to keep the drink cold without over diluting it, but on the same token, on the same hand, sometimes the dilution is too slow if you build it in the glass over just the ice cube here. There's a couple different schools of thought on that one. Really just find whichever way you like it, but let's keep going. So grab your stirring glass, grab your jigger, and we're going to do, this is pretty simple if you get the bottle open. Brand new bottle of whiskey again, I love it. All right, so 2 ounces. Of your whiskey, and because this is a richer simple, we are only going to use a 1/4 ounce of this. Don't need a lot. You're still going to get the mouthfeel in there because it is a richer simple, a rich simple if you want. You can make it 2 to 1. It really just kind of depends on the effect that you're going for here. But that's going to help to preserve the mouthfeel of the drink, which is speed, efficiency, and consistency. That's the way I like to make drinks. So you got those 2 things in there, just a couple of dashes of the bitters. Grab some ice, grab your stir spoon, and stir. How long you stir really depends on the type of ice that you're stirring with. Again, I've got a type of ice cube that it's a little bit more dense, it doesn't melt as fast, so I can stir for just a little bit longer. If you're using a cheaper ice or ice that you've made at home, then maybe it's a little bit more airy or even pillowy looking, or if you're using a pellet ice, something like that, you don't want to stir as long because it will over dilute pretty quickly. So grab yourself a strainer and pour just straight over the ice cube there. So a couple different ways you can garnish this one. I'm going to do both a little strip of orange peel here. Grab yourself a Y peeler, that's what this is called. I will link it down below. The way it cuts makes doing peels like this a lot easier than trying to do your normal vegetable peeler, or as you saw in a couple other videos, it's a lot safer than trying to skin an orange with a paring knife. Grab yourself a fancy cherry. I like these cherries. They are the kind of brandied wild cherries. They're not as sweet, they're not syrupy like the maraschino cherries. So we're gonna grab that out there real quick. And you can either wrap the cherry in there. I've seen some places, we'll set that down for a second. They'll do one of these things where they kind of fold the orange peel up, get it in there so you're sort of expressing the orange peel over, stick the cherry on, and then kind of wrap that up there to get yourself like a little ribbon looking type of thing. And then just give that a quick stir to kind of get the orange oils and a little bit of that cherry juice mixed in. And there you have kind of your very basic old-fashioned. Big ice cubes just make it look so pretty. So we'll set that off for a second. Old fashions are one of those things where you can take the basic recipe, you've got your base spirit, you've got a little bit of a sugar or a sweetener, and then you have bitters, and just go hog wild with it. You can infuse the bourbon that you're using, the simple syrup or the Demerara or whatever else you're using. You can infuse that. You can have a ton of different ideas, a ton of fun with that one. And as far as bitters go, There are more bitters on heaven and earth than dreamt of in your philosophies, Horatio. This next one that we're going to make is going to be called a Sazerac. It is a pretty specific variant on the Old Fashioned and one that has become pretty widely known over the last couple of decades. It originated down in New Orleans, and the bartender that came up with this one actually created a bitters specifically to use in it. So if you've ever heard of Peychaud's bitters, this is what we are going to use for that. But the one key to a Sazerac is that it does call for rye whiskey. There is an actual Sazerac rye whiskey brand out there. I don't have that. I am going to use a Minnesota rye whiskey, rye bourbon, whatever you want to call it. It's got a little bit more of a spicy note to it. It just adds another dimension. So we are going to use the Limousin rye whiskey for this one. We're going to grab ourselves a old-fashioned glass. This is technically called a double old-fashioned. So you've got your rocks, lowball, otherwise known as old-fashioned, double old-fashioned. The one thing that really sets it apart from any other old-fashioned varietal out there is that it does use an absinthe wash. We're going to be using Tattersall absinthe. This is a local Minneapolis distillery. They make some phenomenal cocktails. They do bottled cocktails. Again, not sponsored, just really like the distillery. They're doing so many different amazing things, both environmental wise. During the pandemic here, they've actually shifted a lot of their production over to making hand sanitizer, and they're raising money for food banks with every purchase of their sanitizer. So just a really cool company all the way around. If you're able to get a hold of any of their products, I highly recommend that you do so. But back to the Sazerac. A couple different ways you can go about doing an absinthe wash. You can pour the absinthe in here without the ice, swirl it around, dump the excess, so you're really using just a little tiny bit. If you have yourself an atomizer or some way to spritz the absinthe in there, you can totally do that. Some people will do that at the very end, so you really get that heuristic all up in your face. Absinthe has kind of a anise, black licorice, and it's better than it sounds for the people that hate black licorice. Just bear with me. But what we're going to do, and the way I like to do it, we're going to take ourselves our big ice cube, we're going to drop that in first, and pour just a very small amount off to the side. We're trying to not get it on the cube itself, and just give it a swirl and dance. Sort of dilutes it. I think it helps to not only get a good coating out of it, but then it also makes it easier to flick out. We've got that put together. The basic building blocks are pretty much the same. Get that out of the way for a minute. Start off with your 2 ounces, and this is called building in glass. So 2 ounces of your rye. Like the Dem for this one again, the Demerara, so 1/4 ounce of that again. Pour that off. And you don't have to build it necessarily in this order. You can do the Demerara first, followed by the whiskey. That's really just up to however you want to do it. So this one actually takes 2 types of bitters. That Peychaud's that we just talked about, so a couple dashes of that. And then you can do a dash or 2 of your regular Angostura, old-fashioned bitters, whatever the case may be there. So get that all put together. Give this a good stir. There we go. Here comes the super fun part. So for this one, the garnish is going to be a lemon, but we're not going to take just a strip. We're actually going to cut a coin to get a little bit of the pith on there, not a tremendous amount, but just enough, and you want it to be a little firm. And the purists will use only wood matches for this one. I was going to go that direction as well, but it turns out that the box that I always keep in my purse has disappeared somehow. Don't know when or how, so we're gonna just go ahead and use a lighter. This is my favorite part of making this drink because I am easily amused and like to play with fire. Get yourself a flame, and grabbing this, you can squeeze it, spritz it. It gets that flamed. I'll do this again if you missed that first one. Let's see if we can get a second out of here. A little bit. And just drop that in there. What you're doing is kind of caramelizing those lemon oils that we're getting squeezed out of the peel. It just adds for a whole new note to the nose. It adds a different flavor into the liquor itself. This is a drink that when you smell it, you get that lemon, you get just a little hint of the absinthe, the couple different types of bitters in there. It's a very unique, very just fantastic. Those go down very, very smoothly. Finishes off with just a little bit of that absinthe on the tail end of it. Make it, try it, order it, get back to me and let me know what you think on that one. All right, and to finish out, I'm gonna show you just a couple of quick shortcuts. This is a version that I like to make for myself at home after I get home from a long shift. I'm just kind of tired of taking the time to really make an involved drink, and I just want something to sit and sip on while I'm watching Netflix. Or in the case lately, I'm just tired of staring at my phone and don't feel like doing much, so I just want something to sit and sip on while I watch Netflix some more. But go ahead and grab yourself a glass. We're going to grab ourselves another big cube here. And this one, there we go. Finding cubes that fit your glasses are kind of a important component. If you, like we are, finding that you have a cube that's too big for your glass, you can always carefully cut this down. This does work better if you've got a serrated knife or something like that, but you can just sort of shave your ice cubes into different shapes. You can cut them down. If you do have that serrated edge, you can get yourself a little start there, give it a sharp strike on the top, and cut yourself off little chunks and shards and things like that. There's a bunch of different ice making tutorials or ice carving tutorials that you can find all over YouTube. So I'm not gonna get too far into that one. It's not my area of expertise. But we're just gonna go ahead and stuff that back in there. I'm a bourbon whiskey type of girl, so honestly, Jack Daniels is my jam. But for this one, we're going to use the Bullet because I've got an open bottle of that left. And again, it's a little bit stronger flavored of a bourbon, and also 2 ounces. You are kind of picking up on the drill at this point, I'm sure. 2 ounces of your bourbon. And if you don't want to take the time to make any simple syrup, Demerara syrup, you just don't have it on hand, whatever the case may be, a really good substitution is maple syrup. It makes for just a wonderful drink. So we're using ourselves some 100% pure local maple syrup. I just like a 1/4 ounce. I don't like my drinks to be terribly sweet. A lot of people do go up to a 1/2 ounce in their old fashions. Again, you're basically drinking whiskey candy at this point. However sweet you do or do not like it, that is totally up to you to figure out. But get that put in there and grab one of your nice cherries again. And then these black walnut bitters are some of my absolute favorite bitters on the planet. I cocktail so much with these. They just add a fabulous, almost a maple syrup note themselves. So I'm sort of doubling up on that flavor there, and I love it, and I don't care who knows it. So just a couple dashes of that. This is a brand new bottle, so they're not coming out as quickly as it will when you get a little further down. Get that all tucked in there. Give this a nice stir. All right. I like to stir with the cherry in there just because I like the juice off of it. Not a ton, just a little, just whatever's gonna wash off. And there you have yourself a maple bourbon old fashioned. This would work really well if I felt like taking the time to do what's called a fat wash of a bourbon. It's where you melt some sort of fat. You can do butter, you can do bacon, you can do duck. It really doesn't matter. Just figure out what flavor profile you're going after and incorporate that into the bourbon. That is actually a video that I will do later because it's a little bit of an involved process. We're just gonna go ahead and sit here and enjoy our maple deliciousness bourbon. Oh, that's so good. Here you go. You've got 3 pretty common but all delicious-ish versions of old fashions here. I'm not making too terribly much fun of Wisconsin, except I am. No, again, as you found out with any of the cocktails that we've made so far, if there's a version or a variety that you like for whatever reason, it's what you grew up drinking, it's what your mother or grandmother snuck you sips of during Easter dinner or something like that. It reminds you of a good time in your life. It's just the way that you have decided that's what you're gonna drink. That's perfect, fantastic. I'm really glad that you found something that you like. Everybody should be able to find something that they enjoy and enjoy it as they will. Who am I to, you know, yuck someone's yum? I'm sorry. No, I'm not. Come on. You've got your, what I call the modern old-fashioned, the Sazerac from New Orleans, and then my personal favorite, maple all over the place. So thanks so much for watching today. I hope you have learned a few new things. I hope you enjoyed yourself. We will see you in the next video. As always, hit that like button, ding the bell so you get notified when we post again. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you scroll just a little bit further down in the description box, there is a link there to the coffee account where you can tip your bartender if you would be so kind as to do so. And again, we will see you in the next video. Yeah, that tastes about as appetizing as it looks.